The night he ran away, 12-year-old Liam Hart learned that fear had a taste. It was metallic, bitter, something that clung to the back of his tongue as he sprinted barefoot down a broken alley, his backpack slapping against his ribs and his breath burning in his throat. Behind him was a home that no longer felt like one, a father who hadn't looked him in the eyes in months, and memories he didn't want to carry anymore. Ahead of him was a town he barely knew, a darkness he didn't trust, and a future that felt like thin ice beneath his feet. But he kept running, because sometimes running was the only thing that made sense. And he had no idea that within the next 24 hours, fate would place him at the center of a story that would shake an entire biker brotherhood and lead to the thunderous roar of 5,000 Harleys filling an entire street in his honor. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected heroes, like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name. It truly helps bring these stories to life. For hours, Liam wandered through the cold, quiet backstreets, trying to decide where to go next. His breath left pale clouds in the winter air, and his thin hoodie did nothing to protect him from the freezing wind cutting through town. Each step felt heavier than the last, not just from exhaustion, but from the weight of everything he'd carried for far too long, nights spent listening to arguments, days feeling invisible, and a heart that felt too old for a child his age. He kept replaying one painful moment after another, like scenes he couldn't escape, reminding him why he'd chosen to leave. All he'd ever wanted was to feel safe, to feel wanted, to feel seen. But life had been unkind, unpredictable, and loud in all the wrong ways. By dawn, his legs trembled, and hunger clawed at his stomach. He found a small gas station on the edge of town and curled behind the dumpster where the shadows were deep enough to hide him. He tried to sleep, but every noise made him flinch. Cars passing. A distant siren. Even the wind felt like a warning. When he finally drifted off, it wasn't rest, it was simply a body collapsing from exhaustion. He woke to voices, sharp, hurried voices. Not friendly ones. He peeked around the dumpster and saw 3 men wearing dark hoodies pulled low, pacing beside the gas station door. Their movements were twitchy, nervous, and dangerous. Something was wrong. One kept checking inside the store window. Another kicked at the gravel, muttering angrily. The third pulled something from his jacket, and Liam's heart dropped when he realized what it was. A weapon. He didn't know guns well, but he knew enough to understand this wasn't a simple argument. It was a robbery waiting to happen. He froze. His first instinct was to hide deeper in the shadows, pretend he'd seen nothing, and pray they would disappear. But then he saw her, a woman stepping out of the store, carrying a bag of groceries, keys jingling in her hand. She wore a leather jacket with a biker patch on the back, her hair tied up, her presence strong yet kind. She didn't notice the men circling toward her until it was too late. Liam's breath caught. He didn't know her name or who she was. He had no reason to step in. But something inside him, something brave, something desperate to be more than the boy who always felt powerless, exploded forward before he could stop it. He lunged from the shadows just as one of the men grabbed her arm. He threw himself at the attacker with every ounce of strength he had left, knocking the man sideways. The woman gasped, stumbling away as the robbers turned toward the unexpected threat, a skinny runaway boy with defiance blazing in his eyes. The next seconds blurred. One man grabbed Liam's backpack and yanked him down. Gravel scraped his palms. Pain shot up his ribs. But he kept fighting, clawing, kicking, twisting, anything to create enough space for the woman to escape. She shouted something he couldn't hear over the pounding in his ears, then suddenly the air exploded with the sound of revving engines. Loud, thunderous, earth-shaking. Motorcycles. Not one. Not two. A whole group. Out of nowhere, a pack of leather-clad bikers roared into the lot, tires skidding, boots slamming into the ground, chains rattling as they circled the attackers like wolves closing in on prey. The robbers tried to run, but it was too late. The bikers disarmed them in seconds, subduing them with a calm confidence that came from years of being a family that protected their own. The woman rushed to Liam, kneeling beside him. Her hands were steady as she checked him for injuries, her expression shifting from fear to gratitude to something protective and fierce. She introduced herself softly, calling herself Maya, the wife of their club's president, a woman deeply respected and loved by everyone in their group. She helped Liam stand, draping a warm jacket around his shoulders and pulling him close as if he belonged there, in their circle of roaring engines and iron hearts. They brought him to their clubhouse, a place filled with familiar laughter, worn leather couches, and the comforting smell of food cooking on a stove. It wasn't fancy, but it felt real. It felt safe. Something Liam hadn't felt in a long time. The bikers listened to his story with heavy silence and clenched jaws. They weren't just angry, they were heartbroken for him. Maya held his hand the entire time, and Liam felt something strange building in his chest. A warmth he'd almost forgotten existed. The club's president, Maya's husband, a tall, imposing man with silver threaded through his beard, placed a hand on Liam's shoulder and promised him he wasn't alone anymore. That he was under their protection now. That anyone who hurt him would answer to all of them. For the first time in months, Liam believed someone. They fed him, cleaned the scrapes on his skin, gave him clothes that actually fit, and a blanket that smelled like fresh detergent. But more than anything, they gave him a sense of belonging. Men and women who looked intimidating to the world were surprisingly gentle with him. They called him kid, champ, little warrior. They treated him like family. Meanwhile, news of the attack spread not only within the club, but across every chapter in the region. The message was simple: a child had risked his life to protect a biker's wife. And bikers didn't forget loyalty. They honored it. By late afternoon, the rumbling started. At first, it was just a faint vibration in the floor. Then a low growl. Then a rolling thunder that shook the windows. Maya stepped outside with Liam, her arm around his shoulders, and his eyes widened as he stared down the long stretch of highway. They were coming. Hundreds of bikes. Then thousands. Harleys stretching as far as the eye could see, chrome glinting under the sun, engines roaring like a storm rolling across the earth. Riders from every direction. Riders from different towns, different states, even clubs who usually kept to themselves. They weren't there for revenge or violence. They were there for one reason: to stand with a boy who had shown more courage than most grown men ever did. The entire street filled with motorcycles, riders parking in precise rows, engines revving in salute. People from town gathered on sidewalks, watching in disbelief as 5,000 Harleys lined up in honor of one runaway boy who had saved a woman he didn't even know. Liam stood frozen, overwhelmed. No one had ever shown up for him like this. No one had ever made him feel like he mattered this much. Maya squeezed his shoulders gently, whispering that sometimes family isn't something you're born into, sometimes it's something you earn through heart. Tears blurred Liam's eyes as the president lifted him onto a bike, handing him a small leather vest embroidered with the club's emblem. The crowd cheered. The bikers roared their engines again, the sound vibrating deep in his bones. It wasn't just noise, it was a promise. A declaration. A shield. For the first time in his life, he felt powerful. Protected. Loved. And as the sun set behind the ocean of chrome and leather, Liam realized something important: running away had led him straight to the people who would change his life forever. A family who chose him. A family he didn't know he needed. Hours later, when the last bike rolled through town and the sky turned a deep fire orange, Maya knelt beside him again and told him he had a home with them for as long as he wanted, not because they pitied him, but because he had become one of them. Brave. Loyal. Unbreakable. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name. Your support helps these meaningful stories reach more people. Before you go, drop a comment telling us what part of the story moved you the most. Your words truly matter.